Sound check 1, 2, 2. Hello, my name is Elder D, and I would like to tell you about the most amazing book. Hello, my name is Elder Phil, and you will not believe what this douchebag did today. Sup, you beautiful bastards. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, your daily dive into the news. And there's a lot to talk about today. But also, I just got word with the final night of the DNC that I need to be where I'm supposed to go like 4 hours earlier. So if I seem flustered or like I'm talking more like a meth head than ever before, that's why. So the first thing we gotta talk about today, we gotta talk about this huge and wild update to that Andrew Tate situation. Right, because yesterday we covered that his house had been raided again by Romanian authorities as part of a new investigation into new allegations, with those including allegations of trafficking minors and sexual intercourse with a minor. But then last night, things got even worse for Andrew Tate, right? Because both he and his brother Tristan, along with 4 Romanian citizens, were taken into custody. And according to the BBC, Romania's Agency Against Organized Crime says that the accused were grooming vulnerable people and forced them to make pornographic content for an online broadcast. And we're not talking about just a few. This new investigation involves at least 35 alleged victims, with the agency's statement going on to say that a foreign man is accused of forcing a 17-year-old girl to make sexual content online, as well as having sexual relations with a 15-year-old girl. Now, the statement doesn't name the man, but considering that the BBC reports that the Tates were detained with 4 Romanian citizens, it appears that calling him a foreign man kind of gives it away as one of the Tate brothers. And in total, the authorities are accusing those 6 of making almost $3 million through sexual exploitation, with the prosecutors also accusing the Tate brothers of buying luxury cars and putting them in other people's names to hide their income from these alleged illicit activities. And Reuters reporting that the Tates' representative has said that the prosecutors are requesting that Andrew be detained for 30 days. And of course, all of this is happening while they're still awaiting trial on other charges of human trafficking and, in Andrew's case, rape. Accusations, which of course the brothers have been denying this whole time, even calling it a conspiracy to silence them. Also, of course, with this, you have Andrew Tate vehemently denying everything about this new investigation, telling reporters on the way to the police van, "What I've done wrong? Who knows? Anything to put me in jail except to give me a trial. No trial, no judge. This country is crazy." And adding, "This file is even more stupid than the first one. Wait till you see. They say I have loverboyed the mother of my children and we've tricked them into having kids. Unbelievable. Wait till you see. Remember the first file and the media wasn't asking where's the evidence. This is your chance." So of course, this situation is still developing. So for now, we're gonna have to keep our eyes on. But in the meantime, of course, I'd love to know your thoughts. And then, so we need to talk about this family that spent a year searching for their missing daughter, only for them to then discover that she was never really missing at all. Right, so her name is Jessie Peterson, and she was 31 years old when all this happened, and she had been diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, with her one day early last year having a diabetic episode. So she checked herself into a hospital in Sacramento, where she would then remain until at least 2 days later, when she reportedly called her mother and asked to be picked up because she would be leaving the hospital. But her mom declined, telling her she should stay and get better. And then the following week, when Peterson's mother called to check on her, something weird happened.
I gave the hospital a phone call and wanted to be transferred to Jessie's room, and they said they didn't have anybody there by that name.
With a mom telling CBS News she learned that Jessie had discharged herself against the medical advice of her doctors, and her medical records confirmed this.
We didn't lose hope at that point in time. We thought, maybe she's just gone silent for a little while, then, she would resurface again.
And so this family spent months relentlessly searching for Jessie, putting up flyers, talking to homeless people nearby, and reaching out to police and the coroner's office. But after an entire year of this, nothing came up. Jessie had just inexplicably vanished from the face of the earth. Except, it turns out she hadn't. In fact, she hadn't even left the hospital, with detectives looking into this and informing the family that she had actually been found dead there. Right, according to her death certificate, she died of cardiopulmonary arrest in April of 2023, but wasn't reported dead until April of 2024. And so Jessie's sister went to the coroner's office to see her remains, but she says a worker told her that the body wasn't there. And so she turned to the hospital for it instead, but says that they weren't responsive. Though eventually, a mortuary told the mother that Jessie's body had been found in one of the hospital's off-site storage facilities, by which point it was so decomposed that the family said they couldn't obtain her fingerprints or hold an open casket funeral. And to mean an autopsy that, among other things, could have indicated whether there had been medical malpractice, it was rendered impossible. And so now they're suing the hospital for at least $5 million, with their attorney telling KCRA3.
He was bound and required by California law to issue a death certificate within 15 hours and to contact the family, the next of kin. Instead of 15 hours, he completed it 360 some odd days after the death.
And then, so Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, when people talk about fame, they often forget there are just levels to this game. Right? There are times I can mention someone on this show, they have 10, 20 million subscribers. You're like, who? But I mean, people like Ronaldo, they breathe rare air. Because in big social media and entertainment news, Ronaldo just did something that was even bigger than what Mr. Beast has done. With him launching a YouTube channel yesterday and immediately breaking records. With him, as of this morning, as I'm filming this, having over 22 million subscribers from just the day he's been on the platform. Also, my man didn't just drop a video saying, hi, YouTube. He's already posted over a dozen videos, and they all have view counts in the millions, some as high as 16 and 17 million, and who knows by the time you watch this, right? Because some of these numbers he's hit are historic. I mean, within 90 minutes, he had 1 million subscribers, making him the fastest person to reach that. With the success of this launch apparently being so expected, he's already gotten his golden play button. Like as if someone from YouTube just knew that it was coming and they were sitting in the bushes outside his house, refreshing the count until they could drop it off at his doorstep. But the records also don't stop there, because he became the fastest channel to hit 10 million subscribers, and doing so in over 11 hours. Right, with reports noting there that Mr. Beast previously held the record, and even there it took him over 100 days to get there. But then Ronaldo also came after Mr. Beast again by being the fastest person to hit 20 million subscribers, which he did in 24 hours. Also, as far as what Ronaldo's even doing on YouTube, the channel is called You Are Cristiano, and it will reportedly show him talking about soccer and his other interests like family, wellness, nutrition, education, and more. It's also said that it'll have appearances from special guests, and it's also not a surprise that this took off so fast. I mean, he's the most followed person in the world on social media with over 900 million followers across platforms, including over 600 million on Instagram alone. Right, so again, not shocking that this took off, but of course with this, it's not about the sprint, it's about the marathon. And so it'll be interesting to see if he can sustain this, what it continues to look like, because again, this is just the beginning of the YouTube journey, but it's an interesting one. And then Taylor Swift is now back in the news, because she finally gave a response about those canceled shows in Vienna. Because if you don't remember, Taylor was supposed to perform there, but 3 men were arrested for plotting a terrorist attack on the show. The authorities saying that the main suspect had pledged allegiance to the Islamic State online. And according to reports, the men's goal was to, quote, kill as many people as possible with knives and homemade bombs. And there were a lot of potential targets, considering that over the course of 3 nights, nearly 200,000 people were expected to attend the Eras Tour in Vienna. And so because of the threat, the organizers had to call it off, saying in a statement, with confirmation from government officials of a planned terrorist attack, we have no choice but to cancel the 3 scheduled shows for everyone's safety. And also with that, Swifties with tickets to the Vienna shows were promised refunds, but you had BuzzFeed reporting that many fans only received 80% of their money back, while the other 20% was kept as a, quote, service fee. And that's of course without mentioning the non-refundable costs of travel and accommodations. And so there are many fans who are upset and even angry that Taylor didn't mention the Vienna shows that never were, either on stage or in a statement. With people at the time saying things like, Taylor doesn't understand that her silence is disappointing for us who missed the Vienna shows. It was our only word of hope. If she had only posted a heart, we would be satisfied. This is disrespectful. As well as Taylor's silence is really pissing me off. Honestly, she's out partying in London as if nothing happened. It really seems like she doesn't care at all. How are people supposed to feel when she is straight out ignoring the Vienna situation? But now Taylor has finally addressed it, with her in a post on Instagram celebrating the wrap of the European leg of the Eras Tour and saying, walking on stage in London was a roller coaster of emotions. Having our Vienna shows canceled was devastating. The reason for the cancellations filled me with a new sense of fear and a tremendous amount of guilt because so many people had planned on coming to those shows. But I was also so grateful to the authorities because thanks to them, we were grieving concerts and not lives. And she went on to defend her previous silence on the situation, saying, let me be very clear. I am not going to speak about something publicly if I think doing so might provoke those who would want to harm the fans who come to my shows. In cases like this one, silence is actually showing restraint and waiting to express yourself at a time when it's right to. My priority was finishing our European tour safely, and it is with great relief that I can say we did that. And so now you have Taylor and her team taking a break for a few weeks before then picking up the Eras Tour again in October at Miami's Hard Rock Stadium. But, you know, with that, I'd love to know your thoughts regarding Taylor's response here, especially if you happen to be one of the people that was supposed to go to one of those Vienna shows. And then this Francis Ford Coppola situation is so weird. All right, so if you don't know, Coppola has a new movie coming out this fall titled Megalopolis, starring Adam Driver, a movie that's said to be about the fall of a future American empire, and it's supposed to be Coppola's magnum opus, right? I mean, he's been working on it for decades, and he even invested $120 million of his own money into it. And when it premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, it got a 7-minute standing ovation, but very, very mixed reviews from critics. But apparently those critics, they've always had nasty things to say about Coppola's work, at least according to the latest trailer for Megalopolis, which tried to address this problem. Because the trailer opens flashing all those terrible things that critics said about masterpieces like The Godfather, saying it's, quote, a sloppy, self-indulgent movie and, quote, diminished by its artsiness, and how Apocalypse Now is hollow at the core. Except they didn't actually say that. In fact, it appears that none of the critics said those things about those movies. Right, reportedly, none of those quotes even appear in any of the cited reviews. In fact, you know, that critic that was said to have called The Godfather diminished by its artsiness actually loved it and sang its praises in her review, even calling it, quote, a bicentennial picture that doesn't insult the intelligence, calling it an epic vision of the corruption of America. And so it's not clear right now where these quotes even came from and why they were attributed this way. And with this, one critic saying about the situation, even if you're one of those people who don't like critics, we hardly deserve to have words put in our mouths. Then again, the trivial scandal of all this is that the whole Megalopolis trailer is built on a false narrative. Critics loved The Godfather, and though Apocalypse Now was divisive, it received a lot of crucial critical support. And so now what we've seen is that Lionsgate, the theatrical partner for the film, has actually pulled the trailer down and apologized. We offer our sincere apologies to the critics involved and to Francis Ford Coppola and American Zoetrope for this inexcusable error in our vetting process. We screwed up. We are sorry. And so now the big question is, how did this happen? Because sorry is a sorry. It doesn't offer an explanation, right? So we're seeing things like online, you have people speculating, was this the result of generative AI? Does that explain these fake made up reviews? Because, you know, sometimes AI will do that. And there are also questions about what is or was there a vetting process? And then everyone knows that you need a phone case. First and foremost, phones are expensive to replace and they're easily damaged if not properly encased. Plus, they can give you a better grip. And this is most phone cases are boring or cheaply made or both. But then there's our fantastic sponsor Dbrand, right? The awesome company that makes custom cases, skins, and screen protectors for all your important devices. You know, longtime viewers know I'm a huge fan of this brand because they just get it right. Right? The grip feels great to use, it's easy to hold, it protects your phone from drops, but most importantly, it protects your phone from being boring. Right? And the teardown skin is what my phone actually looks like on the inside. It's 100% accurate. And there's dozens of designs with different aesthetics for people who love color and for people who want all black everything. But back to the premium grip, right? It's better than other phone cases, but it doesn't get in the way of you actually using it. It just fits so well, it's like it's not even there. And like all Dbrand products, they'll keep your devices safe from scratches, fingerprints, dirt, and dust. But you also don't just have to take my word for it. Go to dbrand.com/PhillyD and check it out for yourself. It's dbrand.com/PhillyD. But then shifting gears while we're going into night 4 of the DNC, the final big finale, it's important that we look back to night 3 and we talk about the highlights because just everything in the news cycle just pops in, pops out like every 12 hours this week. Where I'll start there is with just this really big viral moment from Tim Walz. Because last night he was given a speech to formally accept the nomination as the party's vice presidential candidate. And notably there, before becoming Harris's VP pick, Walz had never really delivered this type of high-stakes speech in front of a national audience. And in fact, reportedly, he had never even used a teleprompter. But then again, you know, for a lot of people, that's part of his appeal. He's just this guy from the Midwest. He's a teacher, he's a coach, he's a veteran, he's a hunter, he's a dad. And, you know, that was all on display with this speech. It was very different from most other people that went up there. I mean, you had one of his former students warming up the crowd before he took the stage, and then actually members of the football team that he helped coach to a state title put on their old jerseys and came on stage. And finally, when Walz himself got up there, he was really leaning into his whole homegrown folksy image.
You know, you might not know it, but I haven't given a lot of big speeches like this. But I have given a lot of pep talks. Let me finish with this, team. It's the fourth quarter. We're down a field goal, but we're on offense and we've got the ball. We're driving down the field. And boy, do we have the right team.
And with that, the speech got personal in other ways too. He described his wife and children as his entire world, with that actually getting his son Gus up on his feet, shouting through tears, "That's my dad." And notably, the way Walz got to that moment talking about his kids was through talking about a real policy issue, right? Reproductive healthcare, and specifically IVF. And there, Walz didn't get into the whole thing that we talked about yesterday with JD Vance accusing him of lying about his IVF experience, right? Because Walz and his wife actually underwent a treatment called IUI, which, you know, people often get mixed up with IVF, or they just don't distinguish from IVF because it's not really as well known. But instead, you had Walz saying this.
We've got a golden rule. Mind your own damn business. And that includes IVF and fertility treatments. And this is personal for Gwen and I.
And with that there, you know, a big thing that we're seeing is Democrats sort of trying to flip the script on Republicans, right? Because the GOP has long marketed itself as the party of small government. And while that's often long been misleading, it's now more on display than ever. And so the overarching theme for Walz and the DNC in general has been freedom. You know, that sort of in-your-face patriotism featuring American flags everywhere, bald eagles, USA chants. So with that, you have a lot of people now saying that the Democrats are trying to take it back, including here at the DNC. I mean, the anthem of the convention is actually Beyonce's Freedom. And then you had Walz saying this.
When Republicans use the word freedom, they mean that the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. Corporations, free to pollute your air and water. And banks, free to take advantage of customers. But when we Democrats talk about freedom, We mean the freedom to make a better life for yourself and the people that you love.
Also, besides Walz going after Republicans on policy, you had Democrats continuing the prop comedy with that giant-ass Project 2025 book, and us getting moments like SNL's Kenan Thompson taking to the stage to say this.
Y'all remember this big old book from before? You ever seen a document that could kill a small animal and democracy at the same time? Here it is.
With the men taking calls from several regular Americans who appeared on screen and riffed about how their lives would fare under the policy proposals in the book, right? Highlighting how it might eviscerate protections for LGBTQ plus Americans, talking about how it could lead people to pay more on prescription drugs like insulin, as well as bring up and reinstitute a law from the 1800s called the Comstock Act to ban abortion nationwide and throw healthcare providers in jail. And on that note, you actually had Cory Booker getting a few laughs as well.
If Donald Trump has his way, he's going to push through their extreme agenda. Project 1825. I'm sorry. I roll that back. I got that wrong. Project 1925. Oh, I'm sorry. Project 2025.
But then jokes aside, Project 2025 is increasingly becoming Democrats' go-to talking point when it comes to attacking Trump on policy. Right, because as many have pointed out, and the New York Times explains, Trump's been trying to distance himself from the whole thing, but he can't deny how many connections he has to it, and Democrats are trying to make sure that people just don't forget about it. But then, shifting gears to another powerful moment last night, you had the parents of 23-year-old Israeli-American Hirsch Goldberg Poland taking the stage. Right, because Hirsch, he's a hostage, and he's one of around 250 that were taken by Hamas on October 7th when the group also killed about 1,200 people. And in the case of Hirsch specifically, he lost part of his left arm and was kidnapped from the music festival that he was attending, with him now being one of the estimated 105 October 7th hostages left in Gaza. And with that, you had his parents pleading for his release.
This is a political convention, but needing our only son and all of the cherished hostages home is not a political issue. It is a humanitarian issue.
But also, while the emphasis was on their son and the other hostages, they acknowledged the other side of this as well.
There is a surplus of agony on all sides of the tragic conflict in the Middle East. In a competition of pain, there are no winners.
And from there, you had him calling for a deal to bring the hostages home and end the, quote, suffering of the innocent civilians in Gaza. And so with that, we've seen mixed reactions, but at the end of the day, we're looking at a family who wants their kid back, right? And what's really important is what politicians and lawmakers actually say they'll do about it. And on that front, nothing has really changed. In fact, the Democratic Party appears to have just pissed off Palestine supporters even more, because as of filming, it's been confirmed that pro-Palestinian delegates will not get a speaking slot at the convention. Because if you didn't know, the Uncommitted movement, they won about 30 delegates to the convention out of 4700. And they're the folks who've been withholding their support for Harris to protest the Biden administration's support of Israel. And they had been pressing for one of several speakers to be allowed to address the delegates about the devastation in Gaza, with a leader of the Uncommitted movement saying,
"This is a perfect opportunity. The Democratic Party platform says that our party values every Israeli and every Palestinian life equally. I don't think the current policy reflects that, but let's push for something very reasonable. We're just going to ask that Vice President Harris agree to let a Palestinian speak from this stage. Let a Palestinian American speaker speak from this stage. We're just asking for our voices to be heard. We're not even asking you to change the policy right now with this specific ask. Yes, we want you to change the policy, but we just want to be heard."
But they said last night they officially got the no. And so now with that, the uncommitted delegates, they've been holding a sit-in to protest not only the administration's policy, but just the fact that they refused to let any Palestinian American voices speak. And notably, with that, you had AOC, one of the biggest speakers at the convention, weighing in here, writing on X, "Just as we must honor the humanity of hostages, so too must we center the humanity of the 40,000 Palestinians killed under Israeli bombardment. To deny that story is to participate in the dehumanization of Palestinians." So there, I will say some have pointed out there have been some space for the issue at the event, with people pointing to things like on Monday, the DNC debuted a panel discussion on the issue of Palestinian human rights, as well as multiple speakers at least acknowledging the suffering of Palestinians. But again, on policy, we're not really seeing any signs of a shift. Though, of course, with that, you have a lot of people noting that Trump would be way worse for Palestinians, even using the word Palestinian as pretty much a slur. But then going back to the speakers, another big thing that we had last night was Oprah making a surprise appearance, where they're talking about racism, sexism, sexism, reproductive rights. What's gotten the most attention from her speech is her effort to involve people who don't necessarily see themselves as being part of the Democratic Party, right, with her noting that she's actually a registered independent and she called on other independents and undecideds to vote, with her also urging voters to remember the good in people even on the other side of the political spectrum. Oh, also while getting in a dig at J.D. Vance for good measure.
Despite what some would have you think, we are not so different from our neighbors. When a house is on fire, we don't ask about the homeowner's race or religion. We don't wonder who their partner is or how they voted. No, we just try to do the best we can to save them. And if the place happens to belong to a childless cat lady, well, we try to get that cat out too.
Also, a thing to talk about here, which I mentioned yesterday, is the value of star power, right? Because an endorsement from Oprah, it's big. I mean, in 2012, for example, researchers tried to see if there was any link between celebrity endorsements and votes. And the Oprah effect, they claimed, got Obama 1 million votes when she endorsed him ahead of the 2008 Democratic primary. Though, of course, 1, that is just one study. 2, that's a primary, not a national election. But 3, it is continued discussion on the topic about whether someone like a Taylor Swift will lend support. And then, so did you know metabolism is at the center of everything your body does? You know, optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, easier weight management, the list goes on. And you know what? Thanks to our sponsor, Lumen, you can just breathe into this device every morning and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, or whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. And then get this, Lumen gives you recommendations for a personalized nutrition plan to improve your metabolic health. You can breathe into it before and after workouts and meals to know exactly what's happening in your body in real time. And Lumen gives you tips to keep you on top of your health game. You know, I've used it before hikes to see if my energy level needed a boost with a quick banana or something. You know what? Sometimes I've needed it, sometimes I don't. And it's just great to have that check-in. So if you want to take the next step in improving your energy and your health, go to lumen.me/DeFranco to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/DeFranco for 15% off your order. And thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring the show. But then, with this being my final day here, I wanted to give you guys something a little bit extra, a little bit different. Because, you know, one of the benefits of being here is you get access to talk to a lot of people, some of it off the record, some of it on the record. You know, a lot of y'all seem to appreciate us having Josh Shapiro on the show earlier this week to talk. And so today I wanted to include a conversation I had with Congressman Ro Khanna, because there's been a lot happening that I really wanted to get his opinion on. There's been progressive infighting and love and hate towards AOC, the attacks and defenses of Donald Trump, as well as getting his take on, you know, the shift to the right wing that we've seen in Silicon Valley, and also to talk about the differences between alternative news like our show and mainstream news. And while I highly recommend you watch the whole thing, also for convenience sake, I'm going to include time codes for each different question and take. Though I will say this interview, this conversation, it does start off by me telling him to address the allegations that he cut Philip DeFranco in the security line.
Perfect.
I don't think we met in person. I don't know about that.
No, I think just the Zoom. Yeah. So it's wait, I'll shake your hand. Pleasure to meet you.
Pleasure.
Although I have to say, the first question right out of the gate, on the way into the DNC, I'm standing in line because I'm a rule follower, and all of a sudden, from the left, a congressman.
What's it mean?
Ro Khanna comes in and just walks by. And I want to know, do you think that's becoming of a congressman?
I mean, what do I got to say? Then we got a line where we could go through security.
No, a few people vote for you. And all of a sudden you're like, I don't have to do lines anymore.
But I stand in line every time on Southwest at 8:30.
Okay. So yeah, no, I'm the elitist actually. I was like, I don't do Southwest personally. Wait, so I have a question, because on the notion of labels, right? You called yourself a progressive capitalist. And I was really interested after last night what your take is, because there's like that classic criticism that progressives, they don't want power, they want the ability to criticize. And we have Joe Biden, who's been described as one of the most progressive presidents out there. You had AOC last night just bringing down the House, but also it's very close to the DSA unendorsing her. So what's your take on that when you hear that criticism?
I think progressives have actually been very, very pragmatic with partnering with President Biden to get incredible progressive achievements. I mean, we have invested in new factories across this country after deindustrialization and corporate greed sent so many jobs offshore. We have invested in rebuilding the infrastructure. We have invested in putting the child tax credit money in pockets of many Americans. We've invested $100 billion plus in schools and HBCUs. So President Biden, after his 2020 run, saw the strength of Bernie Sanders' campaign, saw the strength of Elizabeth Warren's campaign, and said, I want to co-opt a lot of those ideas. And last night you saw that. I mean, you saw AOC, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden on the same stage. Who would have thought that?
But what do you say as far as like where AOC kind of came from, right? What she was initially known for, and when all of a sudden, you know, there's certain people that are making a bigger deal about it than others. Do you feel like there's any legitimacy? Like when you see that AOC is unendorsed, what's your take on that?
I think that's unfortunate. I mean, look, everyone has the right to free speech and the right to make their own assessments, but AOC's policies have not really changed. I've known her her whole career. She's still for Medicare for all. She's still for free public college. She's still advancing progressive ideas. The reality is that she's doing so in an effective way within the Congress and realizing how to wield power. And that is a good thing. Now, if there are people who think that she's not pure enough or that she disagrees, then sure, criticize her. I mean, we're in broad tent, and that critique is fine. But I view her as a progressive was advancing policy. The fact that Tim Walz was picked, the fact that AOC, Jasmine Crockett spoke last night, Jamie Raskin spoke last night. The progressives have a big say in the mainstream of our party. We should celebrate that.
And then on the opposite end, right, you're someone that will talk to anyone, right, which is a great quality. I know you pride yourself on going on to Fox News and you know, just I think you said that you, as far as a House member, you are on Fox News the most. What?
I'm missing Jesse Waters tonight to do the show.
Perfect.
You know, but we're gonna go later the mix.
But like, why? What would you say to criticisms that, like, and this is understand, this is not coming from me because I think I know what you're going to say, but that they have you on, they have people to judge on, and that's a 1 in 20 experience, right? That they do that to legitimize the network that we're fair, and then 19 out of the other 20 times it's repeating Trump talking points or pushing conservative policy points. What do you think about that? Like when you hear that criticism?
Well, first of all, more Democrats should go on. Then maybe it'll become 2 out of 20 or 3 out of 20 instead of 1 out of 20. Second, those are folks who are hearing a point of view. And when I go on, I don't expect to convert them. I just want many of them to say, you know what, Ro Khanna, he's a patriot, he's a decent guy, man, I like him. And it's not an electoral strategy. It's a strategy that at some point in this country, we need to learn how to talk to each other, to respect each other, to figure out some common purpose as a nation. I don't know when that'll happen. But if we're not even willing to listen and to respect the modes of mediums where people get their information, what hope is there for the country?
And I mean, on the idea of shifting opinions, or I don't know if I would say shifting opinions. I'll just jump straight to the question. What is your take when you look to Silicon Valley and you see a lot of billionaires, especially in this cycle, moving to Donald Trump? Why do you think we're seeing that? And because I feel like people say, well, it's money, but do you think it's that simple? Or
I don't think it's that simple. I mean, first of all, 2/3 of the Valley still supports Harris Walz, but Obama had probably 80-90%. In fact, I know Elon said he'd still support Obama if Obama was there. So why has this happened? A few reasons. One, I don't think our party has taken the right position on Bitcoin and the future of digital assets. We need to have a much more nuanced understanding of that issue. Second, we've got to be the party that says technology and building and entrepreneurship is good. Now, we have a vision of how to have the public-private partnership. It was Obama's administration that made Tesla possible, that made SpaceX possible. But we need to say that we celebrate building and entrepreneurship and want to partner with government to do it. The final point of view is that there is a reflexive, free-market, anti-state sentiment in some of the younger folks in Silicon Valley. And we've got to go back to the tradition of Steve Jobs and Tom Perkins and Andy Grove that recognize that the state had a lot to do with building Silicon Valley. Let's talk about that history.
Do you feel like success has been demonized to some degree?
No, I think that there's not enough understanding and appreciation for technology and entrepreneurship. The Democrats should be the party of building things, of making things. And we should critique the fact that agencies maybe are too slow. I wrote the Chips and Science Act. Why is it that the Commerce Department, a year and a half in, still still has not given the money to the companies to build the factories. That's a real problem in a bureaucratic state that's not working as well as it should. Why is it that we have restrictions that make it too expensive to build housing? Why is it that it takes so long to build things in America? Those are legitimate critiques that the Democrats should address and then offer a vision of how we still need the role of a state in reindustrialization in this country.
So do you feel like the individual, as far as entrepreneurship, that rise, that can go in hand with rising everybody? Because I think a lot of people, there's the mindset of billionaires shouldn't exist. And when you talk about, especially younger folks, that's the kind of more and more the mindset. Is there a world where those two things can actually work together on a grand scale and not just be an outlier situation?
I do think so. I think you need the entrepreneurs to produce things, to generate wealth, but you need to tax it. And I run on a wealth tax. I say tax the billionaires. You talk to a lot of the billionaires. I've asked them, I said, tell me how your life would change if you had to pay 2% on your wealth. Tell me, what would be different? Okay, now tell me how your kids' life would change. Now tell me how your grandkids' life would change. It wouldn't. So have the wealth generation, but tax it to provide health care, to provide child care, to provide free college, to make sure that so many Americans aren't living in debt. I mean, we've got people in this country, 20 and 30-year-olds, that are crippled with student debt. The debt keeps piling up. I had to take out $60,000 of loans, and it ended up being like $150,000 because of all the interest. They're piled up with medical debt. They're piled up with credit card debt. And an obscene amount of wealth is being produced in my district. $12 trillion of market value. We're producing more wealth than ever in human history in my zip code. So why can't we celebrate the production of it, tax it, and give more people a shot at the American dream?
I love that. I like
about time you like something I said.
I've liked everything. It's been fantastic. Even though I opened up, I was like, what about this criticism? No, but I've been asking everyone whenever I get a chance, what's your take? It's every 2 years, every 4 years, we always see it. The fabled undecided voter, right? The person that you always run into and they go, two bad options, two equally bad options. What would you say to people? Because I personally do not believe that we have a situation where it's two equally bad parties.
Of course.
But what are 2 or 3 things that you'd say, well, that's obviously the difference and that should be the difference maker?
What I'd say is, I understand why you may be upset. No longer can you have a single family income that can support the American dream and have a house, have a car, raise kids. Things have gone up in terms of prices. The jobs aren't as stable. The jobs aren't as good paid. But what is Donald Trump's solution to it? Because he actually had 4 years. Where were the new factories? Where were the new good paying jobs? What he did was cut taxes. And a lot of those tax cuts came to companies in my district. And you know what they did with it? They didn't put jobs in Johnstown. They didn't put jobs in Youngstown. What they did is they gave money to stock owners through dividends, and they bought up back their stock. What our party believes is investing in new factories and new industry in these communities and raising the living wage and actually investing in the working class. And that's the difference. I understand why you're upset, but we've got better solutions. And by the way, you're right to be upset for the last 40 years of policies that have been wrong at shafting the working class.
When people bring up the specific numbers, when they talk about Donald Trump, what would you say to respond to or to counter people that say, well, things were good, right? Their narrative is it was good, but COVID happened. And that skewed everything. And so now everything's, it's a shifted lens.
Well, first I would say that the numbers actually don't show that with manufacturing. Under President Biden, there's been twice the manufacturing investment. There have been many times more of the new factories and new investment in left out places. The second thing is we had COVID, and COVID was devastating, and it was devastating precisely because of Donald Trump's leadership. And Joe Biden had to dig us out of a huge ditch. He inherited unemployment at 8%, and he brought it down. He inherited an inflationary environment because of COVID. And through smart policy and with the Fed, he brought it down. So you can't say that things were better before COVID. Obviously, there were a lot of things better before COVID, but it's Trump's leadership that exacerbated COVID.
And one of the last things I want to ask is, I'm here on a creator credential, right? It's the first time the DNC is doing it. And this is not me trying to get you to talk bad about the media. Everyone keeps kind of dancing around this question, so hopefully we can get an answer, because I feel like you're very upfront. As someone that's watched because I'm an alternative to the mainstream.
Yeah.
When you're doing these interviews over and over and you see the news coverage, what's something that you feel like the mainstream news coverage covers too much or you wish that they would cover instead?
Every question the mainstream media asks is about who's winning and how are they going to win. And most of the questions you asked me were about what do you believe in and how are you going to get things done. That's just not the conversation. And every time I go on cable news, I have to remind myself, they're going to want to know who's up, who's down, how do you win. My job is to talk about what I want to do and what the party wants to do. And I think it is terrible, that coverage, the cycle of just being in a perpetual horse race, a perpetual of who's winning, who's up, who's down, who's insulted who. And it's why people have tuned out of politics and have been so turned off about it. The content creators give us a chance to have fresh eyes, fresh dialogue, a new voice, a new vision in this country. And I'm excited about it. Look, you've moved probably from the outskirts of the DNC now to this awesome view. Next time you'll be in the top suite, and one day you can aspire to going through the security line, so you're not out there hundreds of yards away. But that's to be earned.
I love it. So actually, last thing that'll connect to that. Do you think it is a bug or the intention to make it a horse race?
In terms of the media?
Yeah.
I think that the media knew that we were losing before Kamala Harris came in, and now I genuinely think it is a horse race. But like every question shouldn't be, what are the polls? What does this mean for someone's chances? And there's an excessive focus on conflict. The media, I can't get on TV. If I insult someone right now, I'll be on, the anchors all want me on. If I say, here's the time I worked with J.D. Vance on some issue on manufacturing in Ohio, no one will want to hear that. And so you had a sensationalism in the press. And my point is that people are tired of that. And content creators, one, the conversations are longer. People are able to listen more podcasts. I meet so many people. You know where I go? I go to the firehouses. The firefighters, they're there the whole day. And they listen to a lot of podcasts. And they consume a lot of alternative media because that's what they do a lot of the day. And they like that a lot more than the 5-minute sound bites of cable news. Robert Kennedy rose initially in the polls because he was out there doing podcasts and independent media.
Congressman, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
But then finally today we have a congratulations, and I want to talk about yesterday. The first thing is congratulations to Sam L. Because Sam just won $500 in our weekly SeatGeek giveaway towards his choice of SeatGeek tickets. But Sam apparently still deciding between a Broadway show or an F1 race, which I love the range there. It's why I always love to see what people do with their winnings. But for everyone else, that's right, SeatGeek and the Daily Dip are still giving away up to $1,000 in tickets, and you should definitely enter today if you haven't already. You just add code PDS to your SeatGeek app profile for a chance at the weekly $500 prize. No purchase necessary. And there's $1,000 prizes available to Daily Dip subscribers who add code PDS newsletter, doubling entries and winnings. So get in on it. But then let's talk about your comments yesterday. Regarding Andrew Tate, there was no shortage of mockery and also people saying things like, "The Matrix is real," says man who once said seeing movies makes you a loser. With Jess responding, "Classic Grifter behavior." And Iron Corgi saying, "Also, it's a movie made by 2 trans individuals who he hates." Also, Lupin Snoop saying here, "Pro tip, if you are accused of trafficking a minor, saying, but she isn't a minor now is the incorrect response." There was also a good chunk of conversation around non-competes, with Nadja sharing, "Physical therapist here. I work in a rural area and my small hospital is having trouble recruiting therapists that are desperately needed because another company in the area had non-competes for years. Non-competes really harm the care the patients have access to, especially in rural areas which are already disproportionately impacted by healthcare shortages. They are a public health concern at this point and need to go." Also with that story, you had Obsidian Ramirez saying, "That judge who made that ruling in regards to the FTC and non-competes, I would love to see what her donor list looks like." There was also no shortage of people giving Colbert props, saying things like, "Honestly, props to Colbert for balancing that. He allowed protesters to be heard in a way that minimized disruption, and he didn't let Pelosi pull the, well, I can't hear them excuse, and he articulated protesters' concerns calmly and clearly. I wish we saw more of this." As well as, "I was actually caught incredibly off guard with how well Colbert handled that situation. I watched his show for years before giving up on cable, and while he could be entertaining enough, he never struck me as a strong interviewer, especially not a serious one. Seeing him here was like wincing as your drunk friend picked up a dart only to watch them get a perfect bullseye," and saying he's the last person I'd expect to not just try to avoid the issue while remaining softly pro-Israel like a lot of Hollywood, but he handled the call out with unparalleled class. Also in those comments, there was no shortage of people on Tim Walz's side regarding JD Vance, accusing him of trying to lie about IVF, with folks who have used IVF saying that it just shows Vance's lack of knowledge on the subject. But then finally here, and it was more like just smaller comments spread throughout the comment section, with people confused or bothered by the fact that when Asmongold used the R word, it did not get bleeped yesterday. That, I will say, was not a choice. That was something that was overlooked in the edit. And I think that's what most people guessed, right? Because it makes no sense to bleep fuck and not that. But yeah, just wanted to say, not a choice in the chaos of trying to shoot the show while on the road. Sometimes things slip through. But then the final comment I want to respond to came from Jerry, right? Because Jerry wrote, I met Philip DeFranco at a mall. I told him he looked like a pastor, and then he chokeslammed me and threw me out the mall. That was at the other end of the mall. And I would just like to respond that Jerry is a fucking liar. I did not chokeslam Jerry. I punched Jerry in his stupid throat because 3 years ago when I said, hit the like button or I will punch you in the throat, and he didn't do it. And I am nothing but a man of my fucking word. Granted, I made that threat when I was in a much weaker physical shape, but a promise is a promise. But that, my friends, is the end of your Thursday evening, Friday morning dive into the news. As always, thank you for being a part of our daily breakdowns and chats. But I'm gonna give you a little break from seeing my stupid face for a few days, and I'll see you right back here on Monday.